4, 3, 2, rewind.
Rise of the Fallen, MMO Quests, Pantheon. Once again, time to pledge. Very excited. We're here to talk. Let's get this party to
share your thoughts.
Co-host Derek.
Weekly adventures. Co-host Desiree. We're almost professional.
Full disclosure.
Dangerous combination. Creating content and optimizations. I've got a lore video coming. Cannot wait. Which is all about Brewfest and some sort of like cake. Mail on a Sunday.
News and notes.
Schedule for this week.
Hot cocoa. All these people.
Supports the show. Adventuring party.
You ready? Let's go.
Let me take a deep breath. Well, what do you know? It's time for a rewind. That's right. We said we'd bring you another episode when there were things happening, and guess what? Things are happening. So in this episode, we'll be going deep into Visionary Realms' new seasonal approach to development. We're talking about all the updates to the game that have happened since we last spoke, and sharing a plethora of community content as usual, and listening to some new lore. So if you have an affinity for both classically spirited MMOs, interesting game design, or maybe both, whatever, jump in with me, Theric, and my auspicious co-host, Desrin, for this episode of The Rewind. Des,
both.
We were just talking both. I don't know. I say both, but I was introduced
I'm going to have to share this with Savania, make sure she gets that intro at least.
I'm going to keep poking her with this because it was really funny when she did that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we were talking before we started recording how this is like, we're both like giddy because we haven't done this in so long, and we need to, this is about more for us than the listeners, about consolidating our Pantheon knowledge because we're all scattered all over the place, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been a while, but you and I talk fairly frequently just because we're on streams together and all that kind of stuff. But I figured we could just sort of, talk about what we've been up to in terms of what we've been playing and games and stuff. And you mentioned a game last night on the 201 that I thought was pretty interesting. You've been playing some Genshin Impact, is that correct?
Yeah. My buddy, my real life buddy got me into it about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago now, I want to say, just as something that we can share.
Yeah. So I have to ask, how's the gacha life treating you?
That's not what this podcast is about, but I will say I've been extremely surprised by how, it's still a gacha game, but how they have made it the fairest you can really make a gacha game. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to put it without like going into the details, but I think it's very fair, like in comparison to like anything else I've ever even seen. And like the game is good. I think that's the thing that's fun. Killing me. Like I almost want to just run around the world on stream or something to show people, because it's also stylized. Like the world is stylized. Stylized 3D, and the characters are like 2D, so it's like, but the stylized world is incredible. Like if Pantheon had like a massive art department that they could do, like I legitimately, like I look at this world and there are some spots, like I was in a place last night, man, I was like, this is like the sleepers, like the raid. It's like the raid, except for like realized, like it looks so good. And I'm like, man, this is what I imagine like the end goal of Pantheon World being now.
I'd be lying if I said I haven't been tempted to try it out. I would be totally bullshitting. So I'm not going to say that because it looks great. And I do want to give it a go sometime, but I haven't done that yet. But as you know, I've been playing Enshrouded, right?
Yeah, and, I think you guys have been playing Enshrouded more than I have in the last few weeks.
And you were like, you're the one who got me turned on to it in the first place.
I love it. I just haven't been able to play.
Well, the problem with Enshrouded that we've been having is that we have a community server, but it's like, it's early access issues. It doesn't like, it's hard to find the server. Like even if you know the password and you know the name of it, you can't search, and it's whatever. It's been kind of a pain in the butt to actually get people to play on. But the game itself is pretty fun. Yeah. You shared a video in our Discord this morning of that house that somebody built.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, man. I love that stuff.
Their social media account has been like so on it with just like, they just share everything. Like you could tell they're just like crawling community content like all day, and they just share it all. And so like the stuff that they're reposting is just incredible, man. People are so talented.
So talented. Like that, the title of the post was, I made a house and enshrouded it, and now I want to live here. And I watched the video and I'm like, hell yeah, I want to live there.
Same.
100%. I'd move in tomorrow. It looked so nice. It was just so cozy and just beautiful. So whoever you are that made that video and made that house, I mean, good job. Speaking of good people, we have our adventure.
Yes.
Still here. So let's go through them. Still here. We got Daimlos the Darkmer Bard, Breakout on the Archai Shaman, Grogu on the Human Warrior, Anton the Darkmer Shaman Cliff Keeper, Ziplocs on the Darkmer Rogue, Sparoh the Elf Ranger, Bounty Code the Human Wizard, Screech on the Scar Bard, Wikiboo on the Human Enchanter, Shuriken on the Dwarf Cleric, Horsasaurus on the Human Warrior, Fury Wrath on the Archai Summoner, Galarain Moonsong on the Elf Ranger, Annoying Llama on the Human Monk, Stands in the Fire on the Darkmer Cleric, Churro Dude on the Halfling Dire Lord, and Asera Avienda on the Elf Ranger. So thank you all for sticking around through our inactivity and episode drought between our last one and now. You are all awesome and we appreciate it. They are on the Patreon. If you wanted to join them, you can certainly go over there and join. The link will be in the description. That is appreciated. And the way it works, the sort of pledge level that you choose is, I've been suspending the monthly subscription payment just because we haven't been producing episodes weekly or regularly, and that's going to stay the same for now. But there is the super chat and super thanks button for function through YouTube here if you want to support the show, which, by the way, is very much a help because we're going to do some stuff today that's directly the result of that. So basically with the news that we're going to be talking about, there's going to be bringing a lot of people into Pantheon, and they're going to be getting the opportunity to play in the coming weeks. And we wanted you, the listener, to be one of those people. So on today's show, we're giving away 2 $50 supporter pledges. Now, one of those is actually courtesy of our awesome Static Group Live stream team member, Vindini. And you can catch him on a bunch of our streams, usually being the best healer in the land, or sometimes the second best, but healing nonetheless. So Vin stepped up and offered to a pledge for to give away at some point. And so we're going to do that today. So thank you very much, Vin, for doing that. And the other pledge, like I said, comes through your support through the super chats and through the Rewind premiere and the live streams and all that stuff. So when you are here, you have that option, and we like to give back, and that's how we do it, through pledge giveaways. So you're probably asking yourself, how do I get one of these pledges? And it's really easy. All you got to do is be here for the premiere of the episode on YouTube and stick around until the lore segment near the end of the show. And I'll put out a call in the chat for the names, for you to submit your names. We'll throw it in the hat and we'll do the draw that way. So you might just be playing Pantheon by the end of March, which is very, very exciting for a lot of people. The only restriction we ask is that if you have won a pledge before on the show, we just ask that you don't enter again, let somebody else get a chance to it. But yeah, Des, that's always fun, right? I love doing these giveaways.
Dude, heck yeah. Also, well done, man. Didn't skip a beat. The names, it's like we were never gone. Man.
It's like we were never gone. Yeah, no, it comes back quickly when you like what you do. So yeah, good luck everyone on the pledge giveaways. And with that, Des, are you ready to spin the gotcha wheel and see what we get?
Yep, let's pull for content.
This week in Visionary Realms News and Notes. All right, so where do we start? You know, it's on the last episode, we talked a lot about how VR was moving back to the MMO testing environment, how the verbal NDA had been lifted, and those were, exciting things and sort of a good place to sort of leave it. That was in December of 2023. It's already been a couple months since we did that episode, and there's been lots that's happened. And I think we can start with the first Q&A they did in the new year. That was happening on January 18th, and just recap some highlights from that before we get to the more recent news. Because it's important. And the big ticket item from that Q&A was VR dealing with a technical issue with their persist architecture. This was in the Q&A, they described it as being the main thing they were working on at the time. And it was Joppa clarified that they were actually not trying to fix the problem as it stood. They were actually just recreating what's called a persistence layer. And we'll just quickly turn to Desrin for our technical explanation on what a persistence layer is. Persistence layer is for us non-technical people. So Des, give me the Wikipedia.
pretty straightforward, honestly. Persistence, you could just think of it as basically anything that the game server needs to track. So like, since this is an MMO, you could imagine there's a lot of things that need to be tracked, like character states, the items, economy, trading, like positions of everything, just like everything's saved in the database. Whether or not you know exactly what a database is or not, like that's what like stuff is saved into a database, right? And so like everything that does that is the persistence layer. So it is like kind of a big thing, but they kind of tackled it in a month. I think you mentioned that it was. Oh, never mind. I don't want to skip ahead. but like I guess if I had to put into like analogy, I would say it's like the transmission of a car. So you hit the gas, engine goes, and all these like interactions happen, but none of the power like gets to the wheels unless it goes through the transmission. And so it's like the persistence layer is basically the transmission of the MMO. Like nothing matters until it goes through that. And so it's a huge intermediary system, but like they tackled it pretty good again, because they've got the back end at this point, right? Like they've got so much that they've built up towards that, it broke, they fixed it.
Yeah, and it was something that I was pretty concerned about, and it's something that I think has been addressed and they've moved on from. So because Joppa talked about in the Q&A, he said this was like the final vestige of their legacy code, which to me sounds like really scary, because it's like, what? It's like this project started 10 years ago, so to speak.
Yeah, they even said that like that was set up in like 2015 or something. It was like, it's been around a long time.
And so much has changed, in technology since then, like even just in any technology. But, at the time, the status was that it had been created and they were in the process of hooking things up to it. And then internal testing was going on. And Joppa said that they were basically on the verge of implementing all these changes. So, with that being basically a month ago now in January, where are they at now with this? Well, they haven't actually formally come out and said that like it's been resolved, but they've just kind of moved on from it. And I think, we don't want I'm always hesitant to like no news is good news, but I'm just hoping that that's the case, because they haven't really confirmed that it's all good to go. And have you found anything or seen anything sort of talking about this since January?
Well, I haven't been as immersed in things. I'll let everybody know. I haven't been as I don't know,
as
Desrin
focused.
Yeah, as usual. But with like the tests and stuff, there've been patches and stuff, and I know, anybody that watched my patch notes videos, I'm sorry, I've been super behind on that. Just a lot going on. But they had a few hiccups with some item stuff, like I believe it was trading related in the last test. And in fact, I think they were considering delaying the
test this past Saturday, would have been February 10th.
Yeah, that would have been a bit of a blow. Like they did say it wouldn't have been like a long delay, but so that could have been worse. But it sounds like, obviously they didn't delay it. I'm pretty sure they just worked it out. It is worth noting that it is a big system and it's a very important system, and it is all new, and so things can still break. Like they're never going to be able to like put their foot down and say like, yep, there's never going to be any persistence issues from now on. Because there's literally live service games that have problems with this, like that have been going on for years and years. Like stuff can happen, but the point is that it is the new, like the last vestige, like we've moved on. We've moved on. It's the current technology.
Right. We are up to 2024 standards instead of 2015 standards. So that's a good thing. So that was sort of the main thing that was going on at the time in January, but it wasn't the only thing they talked about on the Q&A in that month. They actually, as you do in a new year, summarize what your goals are for the coming year in 2024. They did that kind of with a singular statement near the end of the Q&A, and it was one that would actually become sort of prophetic and apparent in February here. That statement from Joppa was that 2024 would be a big year for content, and specifically that he was not happy with the amount of content currently in the game, which I think, really resonated with the community and people that are following this. Yeah. Like,
raise your hand if you've been in Throne Fast for
right?
half of your life.
Right. Exactly. So I want to tell you exactly what Joppa said. And this is the quote. He said, what to expect is coming this year. He said, he's confident most player races will be in this year. He said he wants to see all the base classes online in a relatively complete and polished state. And that would include wanting to see work begin on the Necro and Bard class, more zones coming online, and then the last three were traits and dispositions, fractures, and events. But I think everybody's sort of focused on the content aspect being the zones coming online, the classes and races coming in. So, that's their outlook for the year in Pantheon development, and that's straight from VR themselves. The question is, of course, will those goals be met, or will we be left with another year of imminence?
There it is.
There it is. I was writing this out and I'm like, how do I say it? I'm like, just say it, right? That's what it is. Because that year was kind of, set up to be quite a lot and then ended up not being quite as big as I think was intimated by the statement. Now, with Pantheon community, if you've been in the Pantheon community for a long time, and I always find myself sort of referencing in my mind that poster from the X-Files, and pop culture references all over the place. I want to believe. Yeah. I really, really want to believe. I do. Yeah. I do. You and we've talked about this. I think we've become a little bit calloused. So instead of speculating on whether they will or they won't meet these goals, as we may have done in previous, podcasts, I think I want to try a different take here is to highlight what I heard from Joppa, that there's a sense of urgency and a sense of dissatisfaction from Joppa, because that's new to me. And when I heard him say this, and when I heard the Q&A, I really felt there was he's feeling the burn of being behind on content. And in the past, we've heard from VR, it'll be done when it's done. And, we're a small crowdfunded company, we do what we can. But to paraphrase, I think the tone has changed. And I think that's a good thing. Of course, with this project, anything's possible. So I'm not ready to get up and shout from the rooftops that Pantheon's back on track just yet. How are you feeling about 2024, their declarations for the year, Des?
Well, I think you're right. Calloused is definitely a word for it, because I think any kind of declaration at this point is almost pointless. I know that's just probably sounding really harsh, right? But they're a hopeful bunch, and while on the positive side, that has kept this project going. Their hope and commitment to it has kept it going, but it's also led to a lot of really just clearly missed expectations. However, the foundations, and I'm probably going to use this word so many times this episode, I bet, but the foundations are pretty much laid for all the big stuff, or at least most of the big stuff. So if they can find a stride where they're just we're just pushing stuff out. We're just pushing stuff out, not always getting hung up on oh, well, that feature's not in yet, so I got to wait for Kyle, or we got to wait for whatever. If they can just hit a stride, I do think it's possible that this year will set itself apart. Since we don't have a lot of big hurdles to overcome anymore. It's mostly just build the damn game, I hate that phrase because it's obviously not that simple, right? But we are kind of getting to that point where it's just a matter of taking the tools and all this that they've been working towards and just going content crazy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that was kind of why I wanted to talk about the persist issue first, because that's a good example of something that okay, we got to fix this before we can do anything else. But all those, not all of them, but the ones that we're aware of seem to be out of the way. So there's nothing sort of preventing them from just pushing forward with content and world building and putting the things in the game that the people are expecting to see at this point, because we're just not, we're not content, as Joppa is not, with the status quo. We need to see movement forward. So I think we're on the same page about that. I agree that it's time to show and not tell. And when we talk about what we're going to talk about in a minute here is going to kind of be evidence of that, or balance this out. I think it gives credibility to what they're saying. It's also noteworthy to note that on January 23rd, they announced Robert Crane, who has been with the project basically forever, I think, senior programmer, has been appointed to the role of producer on the project. What they said about Rob is basically he's done a fabulous job as project manager. He's going to continue in that role, as well as directing the overall production of Pantheon. He brings with him years of industry experience that will help propel Pantheon closer to a successful launch. And if you're not aware, like I said, Rob's been with the project, senior programmer. I don't think we've ever actually heard from him, to be honest. I don't know if we've ever had the opportunity to hear him speak or give some sort of, community interaction. As project producer, I would think we might see more, more of a front-facing profile, higher profile for him in a bigger position. He's ascended, obviously through the company into bigger roles over time. So that speaks to his, dedication to the project, as well as qualifications, I would think. But again, proof will be in the pudding when we see how things go and where things go from here. So yeah, it was kind of cool to hear that. And I'm I think I said before when because there was another project manager. Who was the last project manager? Was there another one? What am I thinking of?
Well, for a while, Joppa had this like 2 mile long title of like creative and programming producer,
right,
or something like that. Yeah.
So were you? What was your reaction when you heard that they promoted Rob to project producer, I should say?
Well, so, okay. I have a lot of respect for the role of production, first of all. And I do want to note that if we look back really far, and unfortunately they've gone and unlisted a lot of the old videos. I wasn't even going to mention this, but they've gone and unlisted a lot of the old videos on the official Pantheon YouTube.
Really? I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. So the only way to like look these videos up is to like go to the Pantheon library. But Rob has been on shows in the past. The most recent I could think of was when they were going through the HDRP conversion. He showed off some of the tools he made.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure the tools he was showing off was like terrain tools. Like I think Rob is just like a jack of many things. But
now that you're saying it, I'm remembering that video in my head. Yes, I do remember that. Now. You're
People
right.
were pretty stoked about that, right? But yeah, we haven't heard him quite a while outside of Discord. He is pretty active on Discord, especially now. But yeah, I'm sure he's been really busy, and I don't want to. I actually want to be. Maybe I'll go a little extreme here and say I'm very, very happy that VR has finally given space to like a real production role. No offense to Joppa. I don't think he was at least able to manage that many tasks at once, Yeah,
for sure.
I've literally advocated for this kind of a thing for years. And honestly, man, I felt like VR has pushed back on it up until, somewhat recently when they finally made Rob project manager. I think they started to see some fruits of what that kind of role could achieve. And now that he's project producer, like all the devs that talk about him say like he's doing really good things. And, I'm like, dude, duh. But like, I just think because they've always been under this, like, small scrappy team kind of a thing, they've been resistant to having a production role because it's like, I think a lot of people see it as like a really corporate role.
Right.
But like,
right.
dude,
It's necessary.
they're building an MMO. They need someone to keep everyone in line and like working as a cohesive team, you know, have schedules and follow up and all this. So like, I think the feedback from the team is pretty self-explanatory for, you know, I think they've seen how it operates and we've started to see how it operates. And I think they're reflecting some pretty huge gains. I couldn't be happier, man. Like I would go as far as to say, I think this is literally the most game changing, like staff related thing in the history of the project. Like,
wow.
It is such a big deal. And I would attribute so much of the change in pacing and organization to Robert.
Mm-hmm. And I think that as content creators, we've seen that too. And I don't want to speak for all, you know, the content creator community for Pantheon, but like on our end, we've seen much more organization when it comes to like reaching out and talking and planning things maybe ahead of time and sort of being a little bit more, we know what to expect a little more. And part of that's on Savanya too.
Yeah, I was about to say, got to shout out Savanya for that, because I know she's really, really trying on that front.
But it all falls under the project manager and the producer's role under the umbrella. You know, it's like the household, like anybody's household. If you don't have a manager, if nobody's in charge, it's just chaos all the time, right? And one of the, I think you said it correctly, that one of the things that's held Pantheon's development back has been a little bit of a scattershot approach to how they do things at times. And yeah, I've seen some change, and I think this bodes well for the future, especially with, like I said, when you take all the things we're going to talk about on the podcast today and you sort of put them together and that you add them up, it comes to be a pretty cohesive picture of optimism, I would say. So
yeah, I'll note, like, you can see this in effect if you. Well, I guess it'd be kind of hard to like listen and follow the chat on the Discord at the same time. But one of my favorite things is like the devs during the Q&As will sometimes be like, I don't know the answer to that. Rob, do you know? And he'll buck stops with Rob. That's just and that's just how it is. And that's kind of organization I've just been like praying for.
Yeah, no, it's definitely needed, and I think it's gonna bear fruit for them. So let's move into February now in terms of news and reviewing it, because on February 6th we got it can't be basically overstated that we got a huge announcement about the direction Pantheon's development is taking. And this is going to take some time to explain, so we're going to give you lots of opinions about this too. So just settle in, grab a drink. This might take a while here, but basically, here's the rundown. After all these years, like Pantheon's been in pre-alpha, alpha, beta, launch. That model of traditional development is pretty much being replaced with what they're calling chapters of development, and within those chapters are what they're calling seasons. So getting away from that old model into this new model, it's kind of a fundamental shift to the project, and there's a lot to unpack there. But let's first tell you the details that VR shared to give some baseline facts for this discussion. Here's how they described it on the website. This is sort of like the marquee that they put up. It says, quote, "Play Pantheon while it's still in development. Join thousands of other pledges in-game for a front row seat to experience Terminus expanding. Explore significant new content updates in every 6-week season. For the first time ever, all pledges have a period they can play the game. Supporter pledges play 1 week every season, champion pledges play 2 weeks every season, and VIP pledges have full-time access for nonstop exploration, discovery, and adventure," end quote. So the big takeaways there is 3 things. All pledges can now play Pantheon. There are new playable areas every 6 weeks, and they've updated the pledge packages to basically reflect this new way of development. So the first season starts tomorrow when we're recording. We're recording this on Friday, February 16th.
So yesterday.
It starts
tomorrow or yesterday, you know.
Working through the 4th dimension of time, we are now 1 day into or before somewhere of the first season. Chapter 1, season 1 begins on February 17th. It's called Into the Pass. in this season, you can explore the overland region of Avenir's Pass. The zone's overland areas are available in season 1, and the rest is coming in seasons 2 and 3. So a couple interesting things from the website. They list some of the new areas that are in Avenir's Pass in season 1 that will be included. That is Demeth Village, the Roughs of Gadai, several new undead ruins, and Trapper Caves. So those are all really interesting, actually. And the Demeth Village is, from a lore perspective, there's not quite a bit, but there's some lore that details Demeth Village.
I mean, we'll have 2 towns.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Like, the world just doubled on us.
It's been so, I mean, literally, like it, yeah, for real. For real.
And people listening who haven't been following Pantheon are like, these guys are like, seriously have problems.
I know,
like,
I know.
They're getting excited about a second city.
Town. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh.
Hey, man.
Those POIs, a lot of those are new, though, for sure.
They are. Yeah, absolutely. Like, so if you're new to this community, AVP, Avenir's Pass, did exist in a previous iteration. And we have been there before, but that was a different world. It was sort of a different setup, different art style, obviously, and before the a lot of changes were made. So it's going to be like a new zone for the most part. So those are the points of interest in AVP that are going to be included in season 1. They also talked about weapons and armor crafting is coming along. There's a lot in the Discord that they've talked about crafting updates. One of the ones people got the most excited about is the shaman class getting a wolf pet, and their pet system coming online. And they said this is phase 1 of the new pet system that players are going to be able to test, which is very cool and something that's been anticipated by a lot of people for a long time. Maybe not shaman players, but
I think there's some shaman players that I know in the VIPs at least that have been, adamant about the shaman pet for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I mean, obviously, I think anyone that's played PA knows like the shaman's kind of like strong, and it has been for a while. But like,
so why not make them stronger? Give them a pet.
Exactly. It's funny because the shaman was super terrible for so long. Like, and we usually were like, oh, it's because we don't have the pet. So then they made it strong, and like now we're gonna have the pet. So it's that's class balance, but like. Yeah. People are attached.
Yeah. And it's honestly, the fact that they're getting a pet system in is pretty exciting, because that is something that they've talked about quite a bit. So that's coming in season 1. Basically, here's the timeline for everyone. And so, like I said, it starts February 17th. That's when VIPs will get access. And all of this runs until March 29th. That's the end of season 1. Now, champions come in on March 16th and play till the end. Supporters come in on March 23rd, play for a week until March 29th. So that's the sort of the timeline of access. And like I said at the outset, we're giving away those supporter pledges. So if you win one of those, you can start playing Pantheon March 23rd, and you'll be experiencing all the Throne Fast, the first zone that we've had for a while, and now Avenir's Pass. And then season 2 of chapter 1 is called The Mouth of Madness, and that starts, it says, coming March 30th. So apparently right consecutive to chapter 1, or season 1 rather.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's just like there's this plan, there's this roadmap, and we actually have a little bit of an exclusive.
Oh no, you said the R word.
What did I, the roadmap? Roadmap's not a bad word. Yeah.
Well, I mean, VR was resistant to calling this a roadmap. Like it's actually, it's just such a, I know this isn't in the script or anything, but it's so funny because as we've been talking about stuff, and we'll talk about maybe sacred servanthood and all that, but like what used to be called the community council, we're like talking about like these changes and stuff. And we're like, so it's a roadmap? They're like, no, it's not a roadmap.
We need to come up with a list of the forbidden words in Pantheon now, because there's too many of them now. So imminence is a bad word. Extraction's a bad word. Roadmap is apparently
it's not
a bad
roadmap.
Word.
It's a production tracker.
And now we have to add in pre-alpha, alpha, beta, and launch, because those are no longer being referred to. It's now called pre-release. In a pre-release state of development is what we've been told. So, which is fine. It's all just terminology, but it makes me laugh that there's all these,
it's just something to laugh about.
We've picked up all these little things along the way, which are kind of funny. But I actually have some exciting, like, exclusive in news. And this is, they say exclusive. It's just a connection that I made and got confirmed.
Exclusively confirmed. Yeah. Yeah.
Exclusively confirmed. So the chapter 2 is called The Mouth of Madness. We had a meeting with VR, and I asked, hey, what does Mouth of Madness refer to? Because we know Into the Past refers to Aventur's Past for season 1. So I asked the question, and at first they clammed up. It was like it was like the room went silent. Nobody would confirm anything. But I was persistent. I had my persist layer was in full effect. And I asked Joppa to confirm or deny if the reason it was called The Mouth of Madness is because we're going to be playing, or it's related to, I shouldn't say playing, because it's themed for Mad Run. Mad Run is a zone in the game that's on the maps they've shown that we've never seen, played in, or done anything like that. And I can tell you, Joppa confirmed that is the reason it's called The Mouth of Madness.
There it is.
Setting expectations. Will we be exploring this never played zone? I don't know. How developed is Mad Run? I also don't know. What I do know is that they wouldn't have shared the name of the second season publicly if they didn't want us to get hyped or think about it, at least have some thoughts about it. So that is the reason I am sharing that with you. Yeah. And yeah. So, little...
I wanted to throw this out there because, like, I know we're setting expectations, right? But based on another thing that I'll bring up later, which is a interview that Bronsun did with Ben and I, the two places that he's looking most forward to right now, which he said he's doesn't know when they'll be done, but they're obviously in a certain state currently, would be Mad Run and Hangor, which are both parts of AVP. I mean, kind of. It depends on how, we're not zoned anymore. So it's like, it's a little more ambiguous. But if I had to put out a supposition, it would be that chapter 1 is basically all of AVP to some extent. So we'd have the orange zone, as they've called the first one, the Into the Pass. Then Mouth of Madness would be Mad Run. And then I would say Hangor and Halnir's Cave is season 3. If I had to postulate.
I like that. I really like that. So you could come up with, like, season 3 might be called, I don't know, Hanging Out with the Orcs or something. maybe not that stupid. Something a little more thematically appropriate than that.
Orcs and Banshees.
Orcs and Banshees. There you go. I like that. I hadn't even thought of that, but very cool. So yeah, a little bit speculative, but something to look forward to.
A lot of bit speculative on my part, at least.
But so that's the overview, and Des, that's like a lot to sort of take in, and we should probably take a step back and just digest all that for a minute. I'll give you my reaction. I was kind of blown away when I found out about this, because to me, it exemplified what I said earlier, the intent of being focused on content production this year. This puts them on a really defined timeline with dates, which in all the years I've been interested in this game and following it is probably rarer than the most rare drop in any MMO you've ever seen. They don't give dates. They never do that.
The rarest item in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is dates.
Oh, don't give Jop ideas. He's going to put in some food items like dates or something. Yeah, where's Neff? But basically, they've always said timelines are something they don't do for a lot of reasons, and mostly it's because, well, we don't want to disappoint when they get delayed. But this is different. They've put themselves in a position where they are now committed to a certain expectation every 6 weeks, and I love that. I'm going to balance it. I'm going to say, when I heard about this or I learned about this, I also think while this defines things really well at a small scale, on a micro scale, at the same time, it does kind of dilute the bigger picture, and not to throw cold water on anything here, but when you get away from the pre-alpha, alpha, beta launch scale, where does that leave you, right? It leaves you with sort of an indefinite development model, which is, I think, worth some discussion. So Desrin, I'm going to give you the first question here. I'm going to ask you, is this good? This new model, is this good for the game's development from, like, this brings us closer to a finished product perspective?
All right. Well, as you probably can see from the proverbial essay that I have compiled.
Deep breath I just heard you take. I know you're about to go.
So it's going to be hard for me to summarize this, but I have a lot of thoughts. Okay. But first off, I think the initial wider range of, maybe not core community member kind of thing, like, the people that follow Pantheon, but they're, kind of on the fence or whatever. I think it's going to have a little bit of blowback because VR basically just waved their hand and told everyone, there is no alpha, there is no beta, Pantheon's just pre-release now. And I think a lot of people might take that like negatively or like VR is trying to, obscure the process or something. Cause it is a big change. And it's honestly not something I can ever recall happening in other games that I follow, like even indie games. And yeah, we've been very attached to the process of alpha, then beta, then launch, right? And but on the same side, there's also been so much teasing because we always have been calling it pre-alpha. And the scope of alpha has changed so many times. And like, I get what you're saying in that it does in some ways obscure what the future looks like. But at the same time, I would argue that it was already so obscured. Like we never knew how long alpha was going to be, how long beta was going to be. So it's like, we haven't known for a long time.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking that while I was saying it and while I was writing that out too, I was thinking like, is it changing anything really? In effect, in practical sense, is it really changing anything? I don't think so, because there was no definition to pre-alpha, alpha, beta. They were just undefined phases that were coming at some point. And in effect, what this does is it gives definition. It changes the terminology, but it gives definition to much smaller, like I said, on a micro scale, right? So,
yeah, it at least gives us our near future, Yeah. And after some time, and I'll get to this later probably, but after some time, I think we'll be able to form a new image of what launch is going to look like, as long as they stay consistent. But
right.
I want to say, man, this style of having different levels of access for different pledge levels is actually super similar to something I suggested while we were going through the turmoil of 247.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because VR is, they're trying to figure out, they're obviously trying to reignite some interest, like not even just like with new players, but like people that pledged a long time ago and just like given up or whatever. And so I think this approach is extremely good. I think it's way more transparent, first of all. Like the public will know exactly what the game is looking like at a given time. And that's like any pledge level. So we don't have to have alphas that, either think the game is never coming out or the game is, almost done. And they're just like thinking that they just haven't been in there. So they don't, they don't know. So it's like, it takes the whole, if you have a pledge, you get to play. The game isn't different for different pledge levels. It's just different amounts of time. We don't have to think about when alpha is anymore. I mean, I don't know about you. That's a bit of a relief, frankly.
It is. I think it's quite good for, like you said, there's going to be some blowback, and I could see why that might be if people want to take the opinion that, now you're just in an endless development. The game's never going to finish.
Yeah.
It's never going to get to the finish line. I could see why.
I think we'll see some
that.
articles like that.
Of course. But like I said earlier, that was already the case anyway.
Yeah.
Because as long as they didn't define when launch had to be, it could have gone on forever anyway. All this does is get people into a game that they maybe have written off and said, I don't care about this. It's never happening. at least now they can get in and have something, and do something with it.
Exactly.
And it's moving forward. And you said they're hoping that it would generate more engagement. I can tell you, I think it was Ben Dean in the Discord, in the official Discord, said we've seen more engagement. Like they've just since they announced this, they've seen a huge uptick in engagement and actually pledges generated too. So,
I've seen like a handful of people. I mean, like I said, I haven't been as immersed, so I'm not like on every channel of the Discord all day or anything, but I've seen like several people that were beta pledges that got to play last weekend that have upgraded, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, they already had access, they just want more access now. And so I actually, on that note, I think it's a very fair system now. And, we could argue, and I'm sure people want to, about like, the fairness of pledging, especially this far into the project.
Right.
But people get something, and maybe some people might get upset because they're like, well, if we were still doing the alpha and beta or whatever, I would just have 24 access or 24/7 access whenever alpha hits. But then it's like, well, alpha hasn't hit, so like,
right. So you might never get that.
Exactly. So it does change up like what the pledges do. And I could understand some frustration with that, but I think the system's a lot more fair now. Everybody gets to play for a pretty significant amount of time, regardless of what pledge level you are. And it still incentivizes people to up their pledge. And the best part is VR knows when they're doing good because people will be upgrading their pledges so they can play more. It's a very clear indicator of like when they're doing well and when they're not doing well, because like if a bunch of beta pledges get in here and no one wants to play anymore, something's going on. But fortunately that does not seem to be the case. So I think it's a lot more fair, and I think that is an important consideration, and I'm glad that we've kind of crossed that speed bump. I hope it doesn't come back to bite them too much, like anything that has to do with money, like.
Right. That's right. Exactly. That's what I was going to say, is that whenever it comes to people paying money for anything, there's always like somebody's going to point out some aspect of it that, I paid for alpha access and now the $50 person gets the same amount, like gets to play, and I should have more, I should be playing now and they should. Like some people will sort of take that approach, but the reality is, from a consumer perspective, this is a way better deal. Like this is just a better deal for everybody.
Yeah.
You are no longer giving money to a hope and a prayer project. It may never fully get to the place of development where they want it to be. That's still a reality. That's always been a reality. And you're still taking that risk. But at least with now, not only are you're taking the risk, but you're getting something tangible out of it that you can utilize right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And just lastly, on the development side, got to bring this up. I think it's great as well. Like beyond the fairly small group, I should say, of people that was that a Freudian slip? Well, no. I'm sorry.
I was going to leave it alone. I wasn't going to touch that one with the 10
besides the small group of people, and I mean PA testers and VIP pledgers that get to play all the time, the whole 6 weeks. Like it's basically nothing's changing for us. It's just we still get to play the whole time. What I think is really cool is that they get these like waves of population spikes, really like consistently, and it like increases over the span of the season, because it's not like there's different slots for everybody. It just means like, we play 6 weeks, then on top of us, champs play for 2 weeks. And then on top of them, we all three brackets play together for one whole week. I just think that's such a brilliant like way to stress everything without it getting like just insane. They get to repeat that every 6 weeks, I just think it's really, really smart. And it also like spreads the population out. One thing that we've run into a lot is when we have a stress test, we have a wipe before the stress test. everybody is starting at the same time. And so no one's at the higher level stuff. Everybody's at the lower level stuff, you know? And this actually spreads everybody out. You know, the people that are playing like for a long time, they're probably going to be a little bit further along. It works well on like so many different levels.
Yeah, it's kind of like a blending of different modern games in terms of how they do live service games. And like when they talked about the seasons, it made me think of Hearthstone. I know I reference Hearthstone a lot, but Hearthstone does a plan every year. They have a year of like, it's the year of the dragon, just because whatever.
Yeah.
And in the year of the dragon, you're guaranteed to get 3 major expansions and like 4 mini expansions. Those numbers aren't right, but that's just they lay it out at the year. So you know when the next expansion is coming. You know that one's coming, one happens in January and then one happens in April. Like it's quarterly sort of thing.
Yeah. A lot of live service games have a similar model.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this has kind of made me think of that, right? And I think when I played Hearthstone, that worked really well. It wasn't always the case. They only introduced that maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. It was really well received. People love knowing what's coming down the road, because if they don't like a certain expansion, the cards that are in that, they just wait for the next one and then they come back, right?
Totally. Sorry. It is interesting because it is, you know, an in development game, right? But I'm gonna throw in the Path of Exile thing, because I'm a huge Path of Exile fan. We've been doing seasons. They don't call it seasons or whatever, they call it leagues, but that model has translated to several MMOs now, and I think it's been very successful. It builds interest. You know, the cool thing about the PoE devs is they've done like talks and stuff where they literally show their like population graphs, and they'll be like, well, you know, here's the league where like, you know, it did really well, but then like we didn't do this. And they've mastered like the timing of it and like just through experience and all that. But the biggest difference is that this is still an in development game.
Right. That's the big difference. And that goes to what you said about being able to test things on a gradated time frame, right? A gradated time schedule that allows not only people coming in, the number of people playing and the server load, but also just the things that they're implementing, the gameplay things they're implementing, and spreading out that population of levels. So you get, you know, a nice spread across all level ranges and content available.
Yeah, it just works really well. The other thing on the development side that I wanted to highlight is that they've actually made some organizational changes internally. They're actually split into 2 teams now. They have 2 content teams. Basically, they have a like fast-paced, you know, quick and dirty team, and then they have a second like finishing and polishing team, which I think again is a great setup that other companies have like a similar, they do things like that as well, given those other companies are usually a lot larger. When they said that on the Q&A, I thought that was really interesting, because I'm like, did they hire a bunch of new people? Like, who are on these teams? You know, is it just like 3 or 4 people? It's got to be pretty small teams, because they are still a small company. Yeah, and a lot of it I think is art too. But still, like on the content side as well, like I still think they need more designers, but you know, we'll see how that plays out. But I know that's a lot just for like this one subject, but I can't stress enough how much I actually think this is like super good move, and while it might rub some people or the wrong way for a bit, I think even though this is happening in year 10, which is like, oh man, but after, like, the foundations are there. Again, I'll bring that up, right? The foundations have actually been laid. And now if it's just mostly content, it just makes sense to run it more like a live service. Like, even though it's in development, you know, we could cry about that, but like, this is being run more like the live game, and it'll help us understand more how VR can handle running a live service game, because we don't know. Like, that's always been a mystery. What happens when we launch?
Right. That's another great point, that this is testing their ability to run an MMO, which we, like you say, we don't have any evidence that they can do that. You know?
And we like any MMO, they're going to have content releases outside of expansions, and we're used to seeing, I would say, like a 6-week cadence is really close to a live MMO like patch cycle. So yeah, anyway, all that to say, I'm a huge fan of this. I think it's stupid that it's called chapters and seasons. Let me be clear.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
hate that they're using that terminology. I know because it relates to things like you were thinking of, right?
I love it.
But I think that I think that kind of makes it seem a little bit more like a released game than it is. But you know, I can get beyond that. It's fine. It's fine.
That's so funny. That's so funny that you said that, because I actually wasn't sure how you felt about this. You and I haven't talked about this like specifically thing, you know, since it all happened. We've kind of had some comments here and there, but I kind of felt like you were a little more anti this move than you've just stated you are, because I sensed a little hesitance for me, but now I know what that was. You just don't like the name chapters and seasons. I love it. I couldn't think of a better name. I'll say it. I love it because it's very lore-y to me. It feels like a book. It feels thematic, and that actually leads into what we're going to talk about next here, because they did talk about this. This is after the announcement on the 6th. They hold another Q&A on February 8th, where they sort of followed up with some details with the community and some questions people had, and some of the highlights from that. And we won't go through everything, but the highlights was Joppa saying, you know, as we've talked about just now, world expansion is the focus. That's the commitment. So all those other things are sort of secondary, tertiary items. They want to focus on bringing about a new part of the world online that is playable. And he said extras are possible, but not guaranteed. New content in significant portions will release every 6 weeks. And then he says, and this is what we were just talking about, he defined chapters and seasons a little more. So chapters are like this thematic bucket that they want to house the seasons. So as you were saying, right, chapter 1 and the 3 seasons are like AVP, we know, Hangor or Mad Run possibly, and Hangor possibly, all sort of tied into that one region of the world. And I like I said, I really thought this was an interesting way of keeping some sense of continuity between the seasons. Now, what will chapter 2 be is a real interesting question. Where are we going in chapter 2? And
Maybe
again,
we'll get to that. Yeah.
Maybe that'll be the next episode. I don't know. The cadence they defined is pretty ambitious too, and you mentioned this a lot in what you just said. They say, you know, as of February 2024, they have chapter 1 is 3 seasons and is scheduled, and they have chapter 2 and another 3 seasons already in planning. And they say, quote, we will always have 1 to 2 chapters planned ahead of time until launch. So they're holding themselves to this accountability schedule that I think is really encouraging and very exciting for people in the community. So the next question I have for you, Desiree, and rather than giving my opinion this time, I'll ask you, and we may have already answered this actually, looking at the question, we sort of talked about it, but for better or worse, you know, where is this in terms of restoring people's faith in the project, do you think? After the 247 disaster, after, you know, like the meme, 10 years of development, right? Is this going to change anything for people, do you think?
I think it's a pretty straightforward answer, because I don't think it's going to matter, you know, whatever they call it, whatever they lay out or anything, until they've just shown some consistency. There's just been too much turbulence in the last few years that we just need some boring, like, steady state, like, just, you know, keep on keeping on, and just prove that they can stick to something for a while. So like, you know, by the end of like chapter 2 or something, if they've been hitting their timelines and like they've been delivering, you know, what they say, you know, and then some, because remember, they only committed to content releases, right? And it's like the other like features and stuff kind of comes as it comes, which is totally fine. But like, once they've like proven that they're not just going to like switch it up again in 6 months.
That is 100% true. 100%
I do
true.
think reputation can rise again. You know, like, just because people will be consistently playing the game and seeing how it goes, and we can talk about the future, maybe later on. But I think it's just the boring trudge of like, we've laid something out and we got to stick to it. And then people feel better.
I think you're right. I think it's going to be a show me not tell me thing. And once they show, they rise, rise of the fallen, rise of the fallen. That's what the game's called. So they also posted some frequently asked questions, which we can sort of touch on here regarding the frequency of player character wipes. They said, we don't plan to do character wipes between seasons, but there's always a possibility that it might be necessary during the course of development as a game that's in development. And when the case arises, they're going to inform the community. So that just makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure they said like their goal is to like never wipe during a chapter. But, it's still pre-release. That's going to take some getting used to.
Pre-release. Just write it down on a sticky
still
note and
testing.
Put it on your monitor.
Yeah, it's still testing. So keep in mind stuff, we'll get wipes and stuff. But I mean, if they could keep it to once a chapter, that is, that could be 12, that could be 18, who knows how many weeks. Like that's quite a few months of keeping your progress. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's 18 weeks if every chapter is 6 weeks, right? So, or every season is 6 weeks. A chapter is 18 weeks. But in that, we've sort of been saying, and I think the other thing that's going on here too is they're now openly saying, play the game, right? Play. It's not necessarily like you just mentioned testing. It's still a testing environment. So we have to continue to remember that. But on the other hand, you can't blame people because VR is sort of touting this now as play now, right?
Yeah,
yeah. And but from that perspective, a player perspective, knowing you have potentially 18 weeks to develop your character, asterisk, is quite important. I actually talked about this, I think, on one of our streams this week, where I said it just changes my mindset knowing that my character will probably be sticking around for a decent amount of time. And I can kind of long-term progression comes into play. So, and another question that came up is, can I play with my friends, even if we have different pledge levels? And the answer is yes. Simply select the same realm on character creation, which is cool because we have people in our community, in the SGL community, that are like, alpha and beta and all those old sort of, pledge tiers that we want to play together. So the answer is yes. As long as it's in the same time frame, you can play on the same server, right?
Yeah. One thing I actually forgot to write in here, but Rizel pointed this out because someone asked about like the whole character transferring between servers, which they were setting that up, I think, last month, or maybe I can't remember when they were last. They're basically planning on having it so you could just freely like swap servers whenever. That is not in the cards right now, just to let people know. So if you wanted to play with, another person, you would want to make a new character because, you won't be able to just pull your character from another server, just to let people know.
Right. And I think there's I want to say there's 8 to 10 servers that you can choose from right now. There's actually quite a few.
Yeah.
So it's important to coordinate ahead of time. Another big part of this is the status of the NDA, which we talked about at the outset. The verbal NDA is gone. We can talk about anything we want, but the visual NDA is still there. And Des, you and I were talking about this last night on the 201 about different feelings of how solid we are about whether the full NDA is going to go away. What I heard and what I noted in my notes when I was listening to these Q&As is that by the time champions and supporters are in season 1, VR wants the full NDA to be released. They don't want to deal with all because there's just a ton more people, and there's going to be so much, opportunity for people to share their content, and it's just too much to police. Is the feeling I get and what I'm hearing. It's not confirmed, so don't go taking. Theric said the NDA is gone. It's not. It's still there. I would be streaming right now if it was. Trust me. I honestly can't see it being maintained given what I just said, but we'll see. So, one way or another, you'll see streams from us as soon as we can. And we already can because we got an exception, but pretty soon I feel like everybody's going to be able to.
Yeah. I don't think we're too far off on this. I just like obviously I want the NDA to be gone. I've wanted wanted it to be gone for a while. Like, and I do think it'll happen, but it is just one of those things where like I don't want to plan for it until like it is set in stone, because it's like, okay, well, does that mean the NDA is dropping, you know, when champs are in? Does it mean when it's dropping when supporters are in? Or you know, which week is it going down? And so you know, that's only like a month away. So it's like, you know, we'll know.
Yeah. It's I almost said imminent, but it is imminent. I feel like it's imminent. So we just don't know exactly when. You know, okay, so I mean, at the end of the day, having said all this, no matter the outcome, this is a very interesting time in Pantheon's development, just as a content creator, as a follower, as somebody who's interested in the game. And by the time you're hearing this, as we said, season 1 is up and running, barring any sort of technical issues that they might experience. I still get excited all these years through the process. I still get excited when I hear news like this. And I think you'll agree with me, Des, that like we've said before, we've said throughout, we need to see to believe, but I am excited. And you have to give credit. VR shifted gears. They've taken a new approach when the past approach was not working. And I have said it a few times that I think they need to think outside the box to generate new crowdfunding monies, which Ben has said, you know, they needed to do. They were, you know, at a place where they were not generating much crowdfunding anymore. And I think I think they've found a solution that works.
Yeah.
So, you know, those are sort of my final thoughts for the news. What about you?
So when you were saying that, you were talking about switching gears. What I thought of was like
the transmission.
Well, if it was the transmission, but then it was like, but then I was thinking, you know, over the span of like the last year, it's like VR, they were driving and they accidentally like switched from like third to first, you know?
The engine fell out of the car.
Like the end of the year, the mid to end of the year of last year was like them, like, you know, frantically like trying to put it in neutral and like, you know, find the gear and everything. And it's like, but then they finally like they hit third and they're like, all right, we're going now. We're going now. And that's like where we're
dust
at.
Kicked up behind the car again. The tires were re-engaged and everything was moving in the right direction again.
They did some damage. But
they did some damage. They got to take it to a mechanic, but it's not broken. It's not a write-off.
But yeah, actually, you said we could go late, so I'm.
Yeah, man. We can go as long as we need to go here.
I have some like things that I'd like, you know, to be out there, just in case they're missed or anything. But yeah, I you know, to give the overall thoughts, I guess it's like I think it's a great development strategy. I think the game is actually, you know, starting to get in a pretty good place now. I don't think this would have worked like while they were still building those foundations, by the way, like the whole seasons thing, because it gets more complicated when we're talking about big systems. I mean, obviously, we've been through several of these huge changes, and it's impossible. Like you can't stuff that in a 6-week, you know, time
right.
frame.
That's true.
Having said that, I want to see this play out, obviously, before I really judge it, but I could see other crowdfunding games like adopting something similar to this, where they have like a, you know, we're building the core systems phase, but then like instead of having a typical alpha beta, that they have this like staggered access kind of a thing. I could totally see other projects like adapting this
wouldn't that be interesting if it's like they become like
a trendsetter?
A trendsetter, yes.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But I have a sense, like I think it's going to be pretty successful. I don't think it's going to, you know, put Pantheon like, you know, back on the map of like stardom of, you know, MMO stardom in the like general community or anything. But I do think if they stick to it for a while, I think it'll go a long way in just, you know, making maybe people realize that like, yeah, it's behind schedule, you know, it's, I mean, but at the end, the James Webb Space Telescope, it's in the sky now and it's doing amazing things. And yeah, it went over budget, you know, it took way longer than it was expected to, but it's there. and everybody's glad it is. So
Right.
that's kind of how I feel about Pantheon, man. But there were a few things in the Q&A that I did, like, I know you just want to go through everything because there was a lot of like repeating and stuff, but there are some things that I think are good conversation points. So the first one is the level range. So if you remember when in the Q&A, Joppa said that AVP is actually going to max out around like 15 to 16 now, which we have been there in the past. And it has been higher than that. Now, I just realized he may not be talking about Hangor here. So it may be just that the orange zone maxes out to 15 to 16. But anyway, so...
Oh, yeah.
But he did say that Throne Fast is going down in general level range. And, well, I don't think that's like inherently bad. I just miss being able to get to like the 20s, man. Like normally, like without... having to do the shenanigans that you have to do right now in the testing. But yeah.
It'll, this is one of those things that when they talk about stuff like this, I need to experience it in game to see how it plays out and how your character, like where the play takes you in terms of location in the zone and that kind of thing. And I remember they did talk about this, and I'm sure it has to do with, again, like we said, that range of people coming in at different times to spread the people out a little bit, Yeah. So
yeah. I if it does end up meaning that there's not as much strain on the lower levels, like, every time we get in when there's like a bunch of people playing and it's like there literally are no places to go. Like, there's people in every camp, every point of interest, there's literally nowhere to play the game.
Right.
If this results in that being alleviated, I'm happy about it.
To me, this means you log into Thronefest or into the game right now and you go, you hit the bandit camps and then you go one place and you go another. Like now, when they lower it a little bit, maybe you go to the skeleton cave, which is right next to Avelia, right? Maybe you can do that in the first 5 levels, 10 levels. Because right now you can't do that. It's too high. It's like, it gets too high too quickly. And there's just other places like that get too high too quickly. So you lower the sort of the range of Thronefest a little bit, make the higher level stuff. There'll still be high level stuff in Thronefest. And then
they did say that, to be clear. Yeah, they did say that. Yeah. I just, I'm always in fear of like it becoming like this linear thing. And I don't think that's what this means necessarily, but I don't want it to be like, oh, well, you Thrown Fast, then you go to AVP, and then you go to, Silent Plains. And, what I want is just options. And this might just give us options. That's my hope for it, but I'm still, well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see soon enough, right?
Yeah. I like options. I mean, I would like the option of you start a new group, all new players, and you say, let's make the trek to the southern end of AVP or as far as we can go in AVP, and find something around there and start there, because that's more interesting than doing the same thing of going, like you said, A to B to C.
Those 4 thug camp or the bandit camps, man.
It's those stupid thugs and bandits. They're like they're early fodder for everybody.
But okay. Let's see. Another note about season 1. Joppa, threw a few things out that we can expect. Some named mobs, some new points of interest. He also mentioned, and you even brought this up earlier, event-based NPCs and points of interest. And he said, we'll have more info soon on that. But
yeah. You know what it makes me think of? Do you remember that? Remember the werewolf story that they've told a few times about like, and we can talk about this now, but back in the previous iteration of APP, there actually was a werewolf that came out at night. Yeah. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
I have footage of it. I know exactly because he walked over to Mad Run and then he walked back to Demeth or Ish Demeth, I guess. Not quite, but yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. And that's a story that they've kind of told. There's an old, like a newsletter from like 5 years ago that told a story of what they kind of want to see with this. So these event-based NPCs and
Okay.
stuff that's something they've always wanted to do, and I think it will be interesting to see them start to implement that.
Well, that's a very reasonable explanation, because I honestly, I was totally like, what does that mean? Event based, it sounds too buzzwordy to me, but maybe that's what it is. That'd be great to see. Let's see. So you mentioned the shaman pet. They did say that summoner might actually come during season 1, which might be interesting. But I guess the art, basically the art for the pets, needs to kind of catch up. So basically Jop was like on the fence of saying like, we could put it in, but like we'd have to use like a placeholder or something. So he's like, we kind of like don't want to put it in at all at that point. So it's like, we don't really know where this lands, to be clear, but it's like the possibility is there. But frankly, just knowing that it's like that close, I'm kind of like, okay, I can just wait till season 2.
Yeah. Every time they bring up the pet system, summoners pipe up in the Discord and be like, when?
There are a few. I wonder if any of them watch our show or listen to our show.
Well, but Brian Reck, Adamarcus is one of our...
I know we have like positive summoner, but there's... I'm thinking of a few people that pop into the official Discord like once in a blue moon, and they're like, they're like, summoner in the game yet? And everybody's like, no, it's not. Sorry. And they're like, F this. And they get all like mad. And I've seen it happen over the years so many times. And it's like the same like handful of people.
Why are the summoners so salty? Why are they?
I mean, they've been delayed a long time for sure. But
hey, welcome to Ranger World. All right.
I know, man. I know.
Rangers and Druids over here in the corner, like, hello.
For real. Biomes and climates. So Joppa did confirm that there's some climates and fractures like already, for AVP. I think he did mention like Hangor, obviously. That's probably the first big like climate that I think we'll be encountering. So it's a little bit far out now. But he did mention something that I don't think was clear where in the zone it is. But he mentioned, I think he even called it like, they're doing something special with the Dragon Head Shrine.
They did mention that. I had that in my notes too, actually. Let me just pull that up, because this is one of those things that I was like going through my notes. I'm like, I could talk about this. I don't really know exactly what I want to say. But yeah, he said Dragon Head Shrine. It has some unique mechanics and biomes within a biome.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote down.
That's pretty much, that's what he said, right? And I'm like, it got me thinking. And this is something that I think the project like is in dire need of. And I understand why, like we aren't there. But we need a difference in scenery. I don't know about you. I've been a little bit leery that AVP is just going to be like Thrown Fast 2.0. Like,
yeah, that's a real concern. I understand why you feel that way.
It is like, the same region, so like it kind of should be, but
there are
not the whole thing.
Places. Yes, that's right. Exactly. There are places in there that need to look quite different. But yeah, I mean, God, a Dragon Head Shrine or Dragon Head Shrine. Whatever,
I have no idea.
Whatever that is, I want it. I don't even know what it is, but I want it.
I think of all of the like surprises that might come in season 1, it would be really fun if that was like something that was, in the orange zone that we'll be experiencing.
Yes.
But he did not say that. Just to be clear, like he did not say that, but it'd be cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, and from what we've seen of Gloom as a environment, like not a biome, but like a fracture, and in a specific area that is affected by the fracture in the game right now is intense. It's intense.
Yeah.
And if they can duplicate that with other kinds of fractures and different effects, I think it's going to go a long way. Drac just put up a short today on the channel from when they were playing on Monday night, showing how dark the gloom is. It's intense.
Well, yeah, we do know that the gloom in certain places is kind of broken. So like
Yeah,
it
it's
is
a little broken,
but
it gets the point across. Though.
Oh, it gets the point. It gets the point. Actually, one of my favorite things that I wanted to capture for the last like B-roll that I did was the walking up to the Spirit Manor and how like the shading of everything like changes.
Yes.
I think that's a really good representation of that kind of a thing. It's not particularly dark though, so maybe not. But like that kind of gradual entrance into like something's wrong like up here.
Yeah.
I think that's more like what Gloom is going for, but like right now it's like you take a step forward and your screen just black.
Lights out.
I can't wait for them to fix that, but we'll see. But on another note, we've been with the human for
a while.
Several hundred years, maybe waiting on the next collision.
Yes, exactly.
But so Ogre seems really close though. They shared this in the Q&A. They shared some actual like not concept. It's like actual like models and stuff. Basically, they're doing the armor fitting. I think
you're going to see those.
Great.
You're going to see those during the premiere. I'm going to put those in the footage
perfect.
that we're showing during the premiere, so you'll see.
Just to let you know, they did put an updated one in the Dean's Beans channel. If you didn't see it, so I think that's the most current one. So okay, cool.
Yep.
But it's taken a long time. And I know they've said like, once we do this, then, they're going to do the gnomes. So the smallest one. And then, everything else they made it sound like, everything else is just kind of like a breeze from there. But like, I know better. We've been down this road before, literally a year and some change ago. And I'm not going to lie, man. Like I know they haven't committed to like races and classes for seasons. Cause again, it's just content, that they're like, land area and stuff that they're committing to. But I'd be pretty sad if we didn't get more races in a little bit faster cadence. And Joppa's saying like, yeah, we should have all the races in by this year. And I'm like, man, that sounds a lot like by the end of the year.
I think, and to me, when we were saying we were calloused earlier, I think that's the practical effect of being calloused, is that we don't really, to me, and it's fine that you put these in, like, this is, I'll get information and stuff, and people want to know this. But just for my own personal interest, I'm like, I kind of just, it washes over me a little bit now.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get excited.
And I don't really feel like it's not worthy of, like when we used to do this show every week, that's the kind of stuff we would spend 20 minutes talking about. Yeah. And now it's kind of like, it should be a footnote, but it's not something I'm going to spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, true. I did want to note though that they said that the humans are getting a little bit more love. With I think he said season 1, so we might actually see this tomorrow. So I'm really curious. But lastly, the character creation, character customization isn't that far off. They've said this a few times, and so that actually seems like something on the horizon. Which to me, I'm like, whatever. Like, but it is a big deal. I think it's actually surprising to me how many players coming in find that to be a big deal.
That's true. That's true.
While it's not huge for me, because it's like they do humans, and it's not just humans though. Like character customization is just, that applies to everybody. So like, in that sense, I am kind of excited for that.
It's an interesting question that we could probably spend a lot more time actually talking about, is bringing in all the, alpha beta supporter level pledges change what their priorities are for development, right? Does character customization become a bigger priority for them? Because like you say, people want that. People really, really want to customize their characters. Nobody wants to run around looking like the same human, as everybody else, especially the female, the faces that in our community, the human female model gets a lot of heat, and they know it.
Yeah,
they do. They got to get on that though.
That is super true though. Because this is going to be seen by more of the general public, I wouldn't even be mad if they made that kind of a priority, to be honest, even though it's not a big deal for me. Just because I think it's one of those like hiccups that you encounter right when you first play the game that might have more of a like subconscious effect than we might give it credit for. Because it's
I
like,
think-
I'm
I think I
expecting
would-
this because every other game has this, and then this doesn't even have that, like.
Yeah, I think I would need more time than we have to really give all my thoughts on that. Because
Okay.
it's one of those design democracy discussions that I have a lot of conflicting emotions
Okay.
about.
All right. Well, then other little like notes. Just this is kind of a big one that does tie into our main topic here, and a lot of people miss this because they actually didn't say until after they stopped the recording. This was like as we were all just hanging out at the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I didn't even hear this one then. I don't
Yeah.
even know what this is.
Here it is. So Savania like stated they will likely have pauses in between chapters. So seasons are back to back. So that's 6 weeks, 6 weeks, like there's back to back. But they will likely take a break between chapters. They, joked about like, they got to give the devs a break sometime because it is, a fairly aggressive timeline, especially for them. But it is worth noting. And I don't want to be cynical. I don't think it's going to be a long time between chapters, but it is something to keep in mind.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And I guess it kind of makes sense to me that, just hearing this now for the first time, but I mean, it depends on, I think it depends on how long the break is, like, what are we talking about? We can't be talking about 6 months, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That can't be the case because that would be a problem. But I mean, it just depends on if they define the break ahead of time and what they're doing during the break and how it sort of plays into the schedule, the ongoing development.
Yeah.
I think it'll be important for them.
As long as they keep us in the loop, basically. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Exactly.
Which hopefully, they said the whole communication, a lot of communication, like we're working on communication. So that's a good place to start. And that's also why I noted, like, I won't be convinced until like the end of season 2, like, so not season, chapter 2. Because like we've been through the whole process twice, then we'll really know. Okay. I know we're starting to go a little long here, but I want to bring this up because I know our people, and I know now that we have the timelines, this is just naturally what people do, right? We want to figure out like, how long are we going to be doing this? Like, how long is this cadence going to go? Before certain things like, finishing Throne Fast or King's Reach, I mean. So just let's get it out of the way. As a generalization, since Joppa did say, not all zones are created equal. Like the example was like, Halnir's Cave will just be a single season, but Black Rose Keep will be 2. And then obviously AVP has been 3. And so using that as like a general guideline, you could extrapolate and, you look at the map, going by like size of zones, like what's in the zones and stuff. Like you could kind of maybe suss it out to around like 32 seasons or so. And that comes out to about 3.5 years of before we finish King's Reach at this pace. And that's not counting the breaks between chapters. But it's also not counting possible increases to team size. And I know VR is not wanting us to really try to think of it this way, but I'm going to be honest, like even if things like team size don't change, but they do stick to the season's cadence, I'm actually not even mad. I think, at least for me, I would rather at least have that general picture, like this kind of loose estimate that I can compare to like the progress. Like if they stay consistent, like let's say we go this whole year sticking to the seasons and chapters thing. And like, we could more safely say like, yeah, like King's Reach could be done in like 3.5 years or so. And King's Reach is pretty freaking huge. And I think if we do get to that point, after this has gone successfully for a while, and hopefully it's faster than that, but like, that's just going off what we have. Right. I feel like pretty much all of the main game systems would be in as well, and King's Reach. And I think that gives us a certain picture about what launch might look like. And this isn't from VR, but King's Reach launch?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I want to be there, but I can't. I don't think I can get there right now on that trajectory of potential long-term planning and long-term, forecasting. To me, because so a couple things: rainfall, the other continent, and white thaw, the southern continent, are vastly different in terms of what the lore describes them and what they would look like, what they would feel like. To me, it seems like that's a bridge too far to consider, to look at the pace that they've proposed for the current, in the next 18 weeks, and then extrapolate that, sort of copy and paste that on to the next. I would voice caution in that regard. And I never want to, even though, 3 years is still a long ways off, and I would have never guessed we would be forecasting a launch in potentially 2027. I was certainly not one of those people, but there are those people out there so maybe they were right all along. Fine. If we get to launch in 2027, I'm not going to be mad, but I just think that might be, I've learned my lesson enough not to tell myself that.
Yeah. I know this is a really like far out thing. I just know people's like tendency, including my own. But to be clear, that is assuming nothing changes, assuming that, and again, VR doesn't even plan this far out. Just
there's
like
too many
they
variables
literally
involved,
said
right?
They're only planning out like 2 chapters ahead, right? Like, there's a little teaser about chapter 3, but maybe we'll get to that. But like, obviously they're not planning that far. I just wanted to throw it out there because I think to me, there's comfort in an idea rather than just like alpha, like it's kind of what I was saying earlier. It's like, I'd actually rather be like, yeah, okay, like King's Reach might be done in 3 years or something, than I don't know when. King's Reach. So maybe there's other people that resonate with that, or maybe there's other people that just don't even want to go there, which is totally fair.
I think at the end of the day, it's kind of the same. You end up at the same place. Nobody knows, and either you have a math formula in your head that gives you comfort, or you don't. And at the end of the day, we're in the same kind of place. That's just my opinion, though.
That's also to say, and I have a tendency to really be against like pushing pledges and stuff, right? But again, that's if nothing changes. And so, cross your fingers, everybody. Maybe as things start going well, maybe if the season things is good, investors get interest. Maybe we get some more team members. That's how this changes. That is how this changes.
Yeah, there are variables that can go both ways. There's various variables that can speed it up, and there's variables that can slow it down, right?
Yep.
And things we can't even think of. So
totally,
it's too nebulous for me. But
yeah,
I like the idea.
All right, well, so I don't close on like some really I guess like stoic kind of note. A few little quick things. One-handed caster weapons. I think that's kind of a big deal because if you guys didn't know, we don't have like wands and stuff like that, and so casters don't feel a lot of love in that department. That's confirmed in one of the upcoming itemization passes. Which, if you're on the Discord, Nafel just posted a huge thing on itemization changes.
I saw that.
It's it's a Nafel read for sure, but like totally worth reading. And so that's coming. I'm glad for it, and I'm glad that they're still just iterating on the itemization. I was even surprised logging in over this last weekend or during the stress test. I was like, whoa, there's all this like new stuff. And then lastly, because I joked about the tease, but may as well mention it. They're holding their cards close, but during the Q&A, one of the things they're like, do we have a chapter 3, planned out? They asked Rob, and Rob, after they were just talking about, like water, because we haven't had like water or swimming and stuff for like ages, right? They said that chapter 3 is a bit fluid.
Ooh, ho, ho, ho. What does that mean?
I just thought that was a very choice bit of words from Rob.
Well pond.
To
Well
say
pond.
that chapter 3 was, unsure, but maybe that's not exactly what he means. So there's my super like conspiracy for a bit there. But
love that,
but yeah, who knows what chapter 3 might hold, and who knows what, how far chapter 2 goes and all that sort of stuff. But like it is fun that might be in the future there.
Sure, yeah, man. I'll take it. We need fun. We need more fun and high-spirited
Seriously.
moments, lately.
That's a good point.
off.
Like, I think this season's thing actually brings that.
Mhm.
That's a great point, man. And I did mention the Dean's Beans channel. In case people aren't aware that are listening to this, the Sacred Servanthood put together a channel on the Discord where we are reposting developer quotes and stuff, even if they're in VIP chat, because NDAs, verbal
Yep.
NDA is not there. So if you want to catch up on it's not like an automatic dev tracker. We still have to manually do it because people don't want to see devs talking about their dinner and stuff, because they totally do. We are reposting important information into that channel as is available. It's kind of a group effort. And I think that is one of the best places to see how often the developers are spilling. So if you're curious, that's, you don't have to read all the channels of the Discord anymore to catch up with what the devs are saying.
It's been a godsend, that channel, because honestly, I even for me, I just don't have time to go through all the other channels and find the stuff. And this has been such a good idea. It's like, thank you to the sacred servants that did this, because that was much needed.
Yeah. Yep. And I just throwing this out there. I don't know when the next rewind is going to be, but if our viewers want us to maybe do like a summary or like pick out some of our favorite things from the Beans channel to talk about, let us know. Cause I think that might be a fun little part of the show.
I agree.
Maybe
100%.
I'm sure we could think of a bumper for that.
Yeah. I'm already thinking of bumpers. I'm down. Let's
But
do
yeah,
it.
now that we have that kind of stream of information and no verbal NDA, let us know if that would be a cool thing. And lastly, literally this time, lastly, before we get into the notes, Savanya, the community manager, has been at VR for a year, and I guess over a year now. But she wrote a love letter to Pantheon for Valentine's Day, and it was very sweet, and it's up on the website, or I linked it in the show notes as well. I don't need to go into it. There's no big beans or anything, but it was just very, very sweet from our community manager. And
yeah, it's a good read. It's on point for Valentine's Day. I love how she framed it in terms. There's some parts where it's like, you're my old flame, you're also my new flame,
Yes.
and you're my go-to in the mobile game that I like. And she made all these references.
I think
that are
we can
really,
call
really,
you Pantheon now, and not
not Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Like, it's become casual now. We're no longer on formal first name last name basis. I love
So
that,
funny.
the way she did that. Yeah, so she's just done a great job, and more power to her. So yeah, so that basically brings us to the end of the news part. I want to just mention the calendar for the week for Pantheon and the media content they're putting out on the 22nd of February is the next developer Q&A. That will be an interesting listen as well, because seasons will have started. The producer's letter on the 29th will also be coming out and giving a wrap up of the month. So yeah, and the graphic on that calendar, by the way, the little goblin creature, is pretty awesome. We haven't.
I like that
haven't
one.
quite,
Yeah.
Quite seen that in game. I've seen a lot of people say they really like that. So good stuff.
Gritty.
Good place to end it with the VR news and notes. All right, so let's quickly look at our schedule here. Now, we haven't actually done a rewind since we rebranded. So if you don't know who we are, we used to be called Pantheon Plus. but we decided it was time to change things up. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. There's a video on our channel explaining the rationale and talking about why we did it. But we are now known as Static Group Live. And the calendar you're seeing on your screen is our show schedule for the week. And it's kind of, as the name implies, it's static right now because we have a pretty good lineup of things. Although this probably will change a little bit because we are hoping to be able to stream Pantheon more than once a week. Right now, Drac, as I alluded to earlier, we do have special permission from VR to stream Pantheon on Monday nights. That's midnight Eastern on our Twitch channel. That's Drac and the After Dark crew. They had their first one this week. They'll do it again next week, and then in perpetuity until the NDA is gone. And then once that happens, or we get further permission, we will be streaming on another day. We haven't decided exactly when and where that'll be at this point, but we have a couple options to try and move things around. But you can see that we have a good lineup right now. We've got Pantheon on Mondays, WoW on Tuesdays, Embers Adrift on Thursdays. You and I, Des, are having an absolute blast playing For the King 2 on Saturday
Dude, I think about it every day.
I know, me too. It's such a fun game. Oh my God. If you don't know what For the King is and For the King 2, it's just, you got to check it out. Just come watch us for like 15 minutes. And if you're not entertained, you can tell me I'm a liar. That's fine. And then Sunday we're playing Baldur's Gate with the Quest and Coffee crew, which is also being super fun. So we're in a phase right now with the channel where we're trying out a lot of new things. Drac has a blog on our new website at staticgroup.live with him and Daimlos talking about their sort of gaming life on a weekly basis. It's really fun to read. And we're trying new things. We were trying to bring a new energy and a new approach to the new year. Still, 100%, we're still very focused on Pantheon, just not 100% about Pantheon anymore, spreading out and trying to do a bit of a wider range of content. So that's our schedule. We'd love it if you came and checked out our streams. And we'll leave it there for the news and notes.
The Pantheon community is full of cool projects, new people, and things that are just worth sharing. What's this over here? Look at that. So let's see what we can find in this week's Community Spotlight. Wow, Community Spotlight. Well, I definitely have to make the executive decision to not cover literally every piece of community content that's gone out in the last. I didn't even do the math. I won't. But we do have some community stuff to spotlight, at least for the recent past. And the first one I alluded to earlier, and this was actually an interview from our friend Ben and I, an interview with Bronsun, the art hire from the community. Not like a year ago, he was still just a community member. Now he is the art lead artist, art director, something like that.
I'll look it up. You keep talking. I'll get the actual title.
I can't believe I forgot his title. I feel really bad. But yeah, it was
art lead is the way it's listed on the website.
Okay.
Art lead.
So basically blame him for everything. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, that's part of the thing they bring up in the interview. But just a quick cliff notes to suck you into watching it. So first of all, Bronsun did confirm that when he was hired, VR already had decided to change the art style. They actually already had the style pretty much ready when he was hired. So just confirm that. He's kind of mentioned that in the past, but again, just kind of setting it straight. So it's fun because as a community member, he was also kind of shocked about the change, but for the sake of, actually being able to produce the game, he got, went to task, right? Now, what was kind of interesting is he noted that since they had that first reveal, that they've already started adapting the art style to something a little bit better, a little bit grittier. as the keeps coming up, and they actually are on the verge of some pretty big updates. Obviously they're not changing the style again, but some big updates to kind of make the style, perform better in the sense of be more satisfying. And he talked about this like cross pollination where they're trying to, you know, they're keeping the painted style, but they're bringing in a lot more like realistic lighting and like, you know, bells and whistles and stuff to like really ground it. So make it, you know, like a nice mix of, yeah, it's hand painted, but it's also like modern. And he said that's something they're really pushing for in 2024, to bring a lot of those things in, and to see it like kind of start coming together. So
yeah, I think a lot of people needed to hear that. I'm glad that that Ben and I did this interview. It sort of came out of left field. I didn't know he was doing this. And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, because the art style has been such a lightning rod for so many things, I know from the video that I made about it, it just attracted so much conversation. And I think that this was a sneaky needed interview. So congrats. Good job, Ben and I. Great job, you know, landing this interview, and for Bronsun for shedding, you know, a little light, no pun intended, on the changes to the art style.
Yeah, it was great. You know, tons of stuff about like Bronsun's past and where he came from, and you know, his veteranness, and some fun bits in there too. But last, obviously, I can't talk about Ben and I without mentioning his fanfic, which is still ongoing. In fact, it's probably been the main like Pantheon like fan content, I think, that has really been coming out consistently over the last several months. And so that's kind of Ben and I's go-to, is this like the, you know, some amazing fan fiction that's like narrated, and it's super good. So if you go over to his channel to check out the interview, make sure to, you know, also check out his fanfic videos and stuff, because it's a lot better than a lot of fanfic from other games that I've read, that's for sure. But
yeah, his
great.
Production values are very, very high, and
Yeah.
he's we've said this before, but he's got community members in there doing voices and stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, that makes it like doubly fun, you know. But and then let's get two quick recap videos out of the way. First of all, Nathan, obviously when they dropped the alpha and beta change to seasons and chapters and everything, there are a few content creators that made videos explaining it. First one's going to be Nathan NAPALM. And I did want to remind people that Nathan is streaming Pantheon on Thursday consistently, like our After Dark crew is on Mondays. So there's, you know, two consistent Pantheon streams going on right now. And then also Redbeardflynn also did a video about the changes and stuff. So make sure to check those out if you didn't already. That's kind of old now, you know, it's like a week and a half ago, but I wanted to mention it. And then something that just dropped today as of this recording, our friend Sparoh did a Should You Pledge to Play Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, based on, you know, what's going on. And she lays out some really good, like, kind of considerations, I would say, before you pledge. And I'm sure that comment section is going to be...
Yep, it always is when it comes to, like we talked about earlier, when it comes to, you know, parting with your dollar, you're going to get some comments. But she did a really good job, and she's been doing these videos lately that are very like clear explainers. Like just the way she lays it out, it's like there's no gray area. She makes it very clear what the information is being conveyed, and I really like the style of this one and the way she's been doing them. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it was very, very fair. It wasn't, you know, it's not like everybody like buy your pledges now. Is nothing like that. Yeah. So
she keeps it real. Sparoh always keeps it real.
Yep. Oh yeah.
In so many ways.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, let's say that is it for the return of this week's Community Spotlight.
2 moons in the sky, I can climb up so high. Mysterious things, perception pings, Therix rainbow. We can go anywhere. Group adventuring, explore everything. It's Therix rainbow. Dan can ride anything. Tales to grow. It's the lore you know on Therix Rainbow. Therix Rainbow. Therix Rainbow. Therix Rainbow.
right. So as you alluded to, Des, the lore space has been a little quiet lately, especially in official lore from VR. But in late December, VR posted a write-up in their Discord about what are called the sacred servanthood. And we actually referred to them earlier as being sort of a unique invention. And this lore piece that they released is interesting because it's a lore-based history for a real-world thing. And what it is the sacred servanthood, I'm going to keep butchering that, sacred servanthood are folks that have taken on the task of being, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Desert, because you actually know this quite well, better than I do, have taken on the role of basically being representatives of the community and to assist with some communication with VR, and basically you could use the term moderators as a sort of catch-all, but I think it's more than that. And when you hear what you're about to hear, this lore will explain to you sort of in greater detail, but in the context of the game. So we'll give a little more practical details at the end, but just for now, sit back and listen and enjoy this lore. And this was written by lead writer J.N. Gerhardt, and actually from an idea spearheaded by their late developer, Kurt Habetler. So sit back and listen to the lore. Of the many secret societies that hold sway throughout Terminus, few seem as pervasive and yet untraceable as the Sacred Servants. A precise count of their number is unverified, with well-run rumors placing their sum as low as a dozen and as high as 1,000. It is a testament to the fidelity of each individual member that even this relatively innocuous information remains unsealed to outsiders. The same can be said regarding knowledge of who belongs to the group, as members have almost never let their inclusion become public. Yet, if numbers and identities are hidden behind veils of speculation and secrecy, the purposes of the Sacred Servants are not so obscured. When the Deicide War was finally complete, as some suggest before it had even begun, the void left by the celestial boundary was especially taxing on the Sacred Six Nations. As efforts of recovery began, the devastation of the spiritual life came to the fore, as much as its physical cousin. How would these vulnerable and broken peoples be born anew without their umbilical connection to the Divine Fathers and Mothers? From Fairthale to Kadasa to Cyrenai's Rest, these races who'd narrowly survived extinction were starving for the base ingredients of their way of life. They needed aid of body and soul, yet after such unprecedented bloodshed, few leaders were inclined to open their vaults and keep diplomatic gates open. Fear was in the marrow of every king, council, and clan lord. Into this void, or perhaps out of it, the first whispers of the Sacred Servants came. Believed to be founded by a human, an Archai, and a third unknown member, the group began to share knowledge, irrespective of nationality or creed. The namesake Sacred Servanthood came from the one unifying reference that all 6 refugee races shared, and the group soon included members of each race, and now halflings, gnomes, and perhaps even a scar or two. Their initial purpose was to enable recovery efforts worldwide, with the ongoing aim of helping those in need of guidance or warning. This has at times caused the group to run afoul with the governments of several realms, and on more than one occasion seen them classified as an organization of espionage. Some accused individuals have even been executed under charges of treason and spying, but there remains scant evidence of their membership in the servanthood. Yet, a heart for global altruism is not what makes the secret society unique, nor is their reputation for repudiation amongst rival governments. No, it is the everywhere and nowhere effect of the servants that marks them, like a friend who only wears shadows outside his home. Even in a world of magic and mystery like Terminus, the behavior of the servants stands out. As one historian put it, they are reliably present and immediately elusive. This, of course, has given rise to mountains of conjecture about the nature of the group and the source of their power, with little of it founded in sober-minded academia. Are they supernatural beings? Do they have some connection to the fabled Sons of Terminus, also called War Wizards, or the dragons themselves? Are they ghosts of some other unknown apparition? Have they somehow reconnected with the gods themselves? As I said, there is much conjecture, but precious little academia. Any one of those theories could hold truth, but so far, not a one has distinguished itself from the fanciful lyrics of a penny-poor bard. And that is the lore you know. But before we move on, Desrin, I mentioned that you were going to sort of give a little more context here. Do you want to sort of name, do you want to call out who the Sacred Servanthood members are in the official Discord?
Yeah, sure. You can actually look this up as well if you're ever curious. We're all green names, so
the green name crew.
There was actually a change in the shading that was very contentious.
Really, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was just like we were joking about it internally because we were pretending to have really strong opinions about what shade of green. But so that there's the 3 tiers, right? And the top tiers are basically mods, and then the middle tiers assistant mods, and so. Keep that in mind. But so the Sacred Sages, top tier, that's Renarius and Track. The Sacred Stewards are Fate, our very own Fate. Mm-hmm. Jothany, long time. I mean, I've probably featured 1 billion forum posts from Jothany.
I can still see their avatar on the forums. I have it burned into my brain. Yep. I saw so many of their posts.
Yep. And also Canoodle. Canoodle's been around for a long time too. Mm-hmm. And then the Sacred Understudies. So these are, most of us are just kind of the old CC people. But you've seen there's been some shuffling, but we've remained as just helpers from the community. That's myself, Desrin, Dosey, who is like the guy that's super on the ball for that Dean's Beans channel.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Dosey's awesome.
He's insane. Then we got Dugbug, we got Derp, Ixar, Wilderness, and Zenton. And a few of those are new as well. They added a few people, which was pretty cool. But it's quite the band of merry helpers. And
how does it feel? I want to know, how does it feel to be in the game lore? That must be pretty awesome. Like, to me, it's so I don't want the responsibility of any of this. I don't want to be I don't want to be responsible for any of the things you have to do with this. But I'd love to be in the lore.
Well, okay, so we didn't have this until recently, right? When we started the community council, like this was like we had no idea. And Savania and Artois, which I'm so mad because I swear he told me it was Artois, and I've said like it's Artois because he said it, and now he's saying it's Artois, and I'm anyway. That guy.
I have restrained myself from correcting you for ages because I know you said that. And I'm like, I still think it's Artois, but
dude,
I'm going to let him say
Artois.
Artois.
He told me because I used to say Artois, and then he corrected me. Yeah, he doesn't
so
watch
funny.
This anyway, so. But anyway, he worked pretty closely with Kurt. And Savania through the whole, Savania works pretty closely with Artois, and through that whole thing, like coming up with this, I don't know, it does feel pretty special, and I wish I could be more involved because I honestly haven't really been as involved as I want to, but it reminds me of when I applied to the Crimson Fellowship, which was also an in-lore community help kind of guide thing that Vanguard did. So it's like it's familiar, but it's also like I don't know, it feels double special just because of like MacLeod. And just that whole thing. I'm just so glad that they got to bring it together. Like I think Artois said it was like 2019 that MacLeod came up with this, and so it's been baking for a while, and it was just like Savania kind of pulled it all together, it's great.
It's the coolest thing. It's really the coolest thing, and I tip my hat to you for undertaking to take on that role because it's really important, and what a wonderful thing to see come together. So we'll leave the lore section there, and that is the end of the show. And we said we'd set aside 2 hours for this show, Des, and we are coming in right at about 2 hours. So
Dude, there
we
it
saw
is.
it coming.
There it is, man.
It's good stuff. And I feel like as we got to the end of the episode, and we were talking, we need more fun. I feel like there's going to be more rewinds coming along pretty soon here. I feel like we're going to have stuff to talk about, even good or bad, because things
At
are
least
happening.
every 6 weeks. Like,
At least every 6 weeks.
because VR hasn't really upped their content. So, we may not need to do these that often still,
Right.
but
Yeah.
at least we have that. At least we have
Yeah.
that, man.
Well, man, it feels good to talk to you again in this context. I forgot how much I enjoyed our discussions.
Yeah, likewise. I'm still
We
giddy.
talk on stream. And we BS around on stream, but we don't get to have these sort of in deep depth conversations that I sorely missed. So I hopefully you feel the same. I think you do. And hopefully the folks that are listening, you've enjoyed this as well. And it's been great to have everybody come out for the premiere. And whoever won the pledge giveaway, by the way, congratulations.
Yeah.
There was 2 of them. That was during the lore section. So congrats to you. Looking forward to seeing you in game come the end of March. And I think we'll leave it there. So Des, thanks again. And everyone, have a great rest of your day.
Yep. See you, everybody.